Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about why avoidants lean towards people who are emotionally available and empathetic. People call these empaths. It's not always the case, but it is common. And some avoidants do this because they're unaware of their attachment issues. And a lot of times, with an empath, they will be more willing to basically put up, to be honest, put up with some of these behaviors. And so avoidants like that because they feel loved and appreciated. And it is not common for avoidants who kind of realize that maybe they've had less success with emotionally available partners. And so sometimes what happens is avoidants may start choosing less available emotional partners. And so you might see a common pairing later in life is like a fearful avoidant and dismissive avoidant. And usually that dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant, originally they dated anxious people. Not all the time, it depends, because fearful avoidants, if they lean anxious, they tend to date either dismissive avoidants or abusive people. But fearful avoidants who lean avoidant and then dismissive avoidants, they have a history of being with anxious, preoccupied individuals because a lot of anxious, preoccupied individuals are empathetic. But it's not always the case. It could be someone who's secure, who's just an empath. And they realize that actually people who are empathetic have different needs than they do. And so it can create a clash. But then why are so many avoidants attracted or wanting these people? Well, the first one is avoidants actually are drawn to people who have a skill set that they lack. And subconsciously, it's because they want to learn from that skill set and learn from you and who they are as a person. And they also feel drawn to something that's different in comparison because it makes them also feel like if they don't have that skill set and you do, you can almost, I don't know, it can prove that they're not as detached as they think that, as people might call them, because they're with someone who's very emotional. So for example, if someone is very emotionally dependent, some avoidants might call this person needy, these people might be actually attracted to highly independent partners for this exact reason. Okay, the next one is that you do emotional labor. Unfortunately, emotionally available empathetic people often initiate, they often communicate, they often empathize. I don't want to say they empathize, they do empathize, but it's also they try and hold on to the relationship. It's like you want the relationship to work even if it doesn't seem like it's working. And with an avoidant, it's not going to look like it's working even when it's their most hardest, like they're trying their hardest, which I'm not saying that in a bad way, I'm just being honest. And so you're going to work and try your best for that relationship, with other people might not. They might just let it go. And so that's the reason why a lot of avoidants might really want someone who's doing a lot of the emotional labor. It's not healthy because what happens is you can become very, very withdrawn and drained and uncomfortable and resentful after doing this for years. And I don't blame you, right? Avoidant individuals can stay emotionally distant in a relationship while still benefiting from the intimacy by proxy because they don't have to fully show up because you are, in fact, doing that, right? And this creates an imbalanced dynamic that they can control. And so that makes them feel safer. You don't control it because you're the person who's giving in all the time. They control that dynamic. And that makes you feel resentful because you're the one giving so much. But they actually are falling more deeply in love, which is strange because you're falling less in love, right? And then what happens is you leave and they might get heartbroken and you feel like they never liked you, which isn't healthy. And I'm not saying this happens all the time, but it does, okay? They confuse your emotional availability with unconditional acceptance. So they think you're going to accept them no matter what they do. And that's not true. Your ability to understand them may come across as safe to them, non-threatening even. And then what happens is once the relationship deepens, they may fear they can't live up to your emotional expectations. And so they pull away. And that's tricky because they're the one that chose you. They liked you for the exact reason that they're uncomfortable with, which happens the flip way as well. If you're anxious, preoccupied, you might have chose them because they seemed independent. They seemed very conversational, charismatic to some extent, but it's all surface level. Once you get deep in it, now you don't like any of those things. You don't like that they're always busy or they're always working. At first, maybe you found it attractive. Now you don't like it. It's the same thing. Your emotional availability, now it signals pressure for them. It signals them not doing enough. It signals them not being enough. And you're not even doing it. And this can be triggering for them, but they still like that about you. That's why they chose you, right? And I think a lot of people think that if you're this person, you think that the avoidant never liked you and they never wanted to be with you. And I don't know, they suddenly change. Not necessarily, just their wounds was attracted to your wounds, but also triggered their wounds. Unfortunately, people who are insecurely attached, they are often attracted to things that trigger them. And so it's not your fault. Like a lot of people think the anxious preoccupied just pressure the dismissive avoidant, or the empath, like pressure the dismissive or fearful avoidant to be in a relationship. That's not what's happening. You both chose it. And now it just ended up not being exactly what you guys expected or wanted, right? And the last one is something I want to try and explain in detail, because it's pretty much everything we talked about, but it's a specific point. Basically, you're safe. The idea of you is safe, but the actual version of you does not feel safe. So the idea of someone who's an empath, right, is someone who cares, like we'd mentioned, unconditional love. You'll put up with them. You'll do all the emotional labor. And that, at a distance, is very appealing, which is another reason why in the beginning of relationships, avoidants really show up and they really like that about you, because it makes them feel loved. It makes them feel chosen. It makes them feel accepted. And all their self-criticism that they feel about themselves is no longer there. It's not prominent. And it is because they're feeling happy. But they don't actually get to know the real you, and you don't get to know the real them. But once the relationship progresses, your consistency of actually being this person, not just an idea, but being this person, can trigger their fear of intimacy and engulfment. So at first, they actually might idealize you or really like you. And then once you get too close, they actually devalue you. And it's a common avoidant defense mechanism, deactivation. And I see it a lot. And this is usually a sign that the relationship, I feel, is not healthy for the avoidant. Or you, of course. But a lot of times my patients are the avoidant person. And so I'm going to give an example based on things that I've seen. It is not a real example. A lot of times I might just blend the example into my conversation, and you guys think I'm talking about real patients. I'm never talking about real patients. These are always examples, okay? And so the example is, let's say we have I don't know, he's got some life to him, but he's not old enough. Maybe he's like 25, 30. So early adult, young adult to adult, 25 to 30. Let's say that's his age. And I picked that age because we want to have an age where they have some experience with their attachment issues, but not so much experience, okay? So that's why I picked that age, but it can be anything, okay? And maybe he's dating this new girl, and she shows up really well. She's very emotional. She expresses her trauma on the first date. They talk for like 5 hours. They feel like so much chemistry. He feels like she's very open. He feels so proud and happy that he met someone who can take responsibility. In his mind, that's how he takes it. She feels like she met someone who seems very cool and detached, but he's becoming open and he's listening to her. So they feel like really connected. And now they're like that. They're seeing each other a couple days a week, maybe even more than that. They're seeing each other every day. But then what happens is he starts feeling less of the momentum of the relationship and feeling like the newness of being appreciated. He starts to actually be triggered by the fact that he, somewhere subconsciously, he was showing up as a fake version of himself, not because he's lying to you, because he wasn't comfortable. You were a stranger. Now that you know him, the real version of him is showing up. And so he doesn't feel like the real him was valued by you. It was that fake version. And so when he shows up as the real version, which is less emotional, showing up less often, not scheduling so many dates with you, you get triggered. But you're not triggered because you don't like the real version. You're triggered because there was a dip in attention. And he takes that as you don't like the real him. And so you might say something like, and the gender is just an example, it can be flipped. But maybe this female that we're talking about, she is in this relationship with this male, avoidant male, and she says, why are we not talking as much? Why are you pulling away? Do you not like me anymore? And now he takes that as, okay, this is evidence that you don't like the real me. You like the fake version of me. And now he pulls away further. Now she's even more triggered. And that idealizing of her that he had, that she's like this warm, emotional, connected person, is no longer there because she's becoming critical because she's being triggered and he's being triggered by her critical behavior. And these people who are very emotional empaths, they want to care, they want to listen. And so sometimes she's not triggered because she's thinking, okay, I want to be there, I want to care. And she puts it all to herself. And then she crashes out, and then he thinks, okay, this is proof. You've been hiding this. You've been lying to me when I slowly opened up because I was shy, but yours is off hot and cold. In his mind, it's hot and cold. I know you don't mean it like that, but sometimes you're mad. Sometimes you're trying to not you're tiptoeing around him. And so he begins to slowly devalue you further and further and further. And you start to chase and chase and chase. And so why are avoidants attached and attracted to empaths? Because you have the things that they desire in a relationship, but you also challenge their triggers greatly. And so often the relationship with an empath becomes this amazing, beautiful relationship, but they need to step up to fit that relationship. And then you need to actually be more aware of their triggers. That's usually how this resolves. But I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.